and this is from Jesus del Toro, what does mending the trust between police and community members look like? What needs to be done to get there? And then related to that, from Maria and Garfield Park, the most valuable resource is people, sort of what you were saying, Tamara. How do we work collaboratively to bring out the best in each one of our neighbors?
That's a really, really good question, the last part. I'll start and I'm going to ask the superintendent to jump in. Look, I think we live in a very difficult time. There's no question about it. And it was difficult way before COVID hit. But I think COVID has exacerbated a lot of tensions and frustration and anger that people have been feeling for a long time. And I don't need to tell you all in this room about that. But the one thing I would say, really picking up on the last question is, I think we've got to figure out a way to give people grace. We've got to figure out a way to not demonize people who have a different perspective and opinion. You know, in our participatory democracy, it depends upon us being to come together and find consensus. And yet the toxicity of our public debate and our civic discourse is if you aren't, rigid in your views, and somehow you're less. And if you find somebody who doesn't agree 1,000% with what you advocate for, somehow they're the lesser. A big part of the work that we are trying to do around community safety is finding that common ground, giving each other grace, giving people the ability to vent their spleen after being ignored for decades or a lifetime in many instances. And so as a public official, you gotta have a tough skin, we all know that. But we've also got to grant each other the grace and to recognize that we really fundamentally all want the same thing. We want peace, we want a vibrant community, we want life where we can build a great family, a great community, pass on wealth, and not just material wealth, but the wealth that comes from wisdom. And we can't get there unless we find that common ground with each other. And on the question of trust in the police, really to me, the answer is the same. We have a long sordid history of policing in this city, where too much has happened that hasn't been accounted for. And by accounted for, I mean that people haven't been held responsible for. But I'll also say this. I'm looking in particular at the young officers that are in this room. They came to the job because they wanted to help people. I think great sacrifice. This is one of the hardest times to be the police, probably in the history of policing. And they literally risk their lives every day to keep us safe. And that came home loud and clear with the murder of Ella French. But even beyond that, in 20 and 21, and already this year, we've seen record numbers of circumstances where uniformed police officers, right? Not the folks that were in plain clothes and a plain car, but uniformed police officers are getting shot at, right? So we also got to make sure that we understand the perspective of the officers as well. We need our officers to be supported. We need them to be supported, particularly with training, because we want them to be doing their job in a respectful, constitutional way. We need them to understand something about community other than just the crime statistics. And that's why, frankly, the superintendent has placed such an emphasis on positive community interactions. What does that mean? That means get out of your car and have a conversation with somebody. In a circumstance where it's not a lights and siren and lock them up moment. Because that's the only way, in my understanding, that we're going to be able to build real trust. That the police see you for who you are as their neighbors and recognize that their most valuable tool is that community trust and having the community on their side. And for you to feel like the dollars that we spend on policing are actually making a difference every single day in your quality of life. And that when you need them, that they will be there for you in a respectful and constitutional way.
Y'all gonna clap for this? Y'all gonna clap for this? Y'all silly. Oh,
And I'll just add a
silly
little
as
bit to
hell.
what the mayor is saying, agree wholeheartedly with everything she said. But in addition to that, just think about building trust with the community from a policing standpoint, like any relationship that's been broken. And you're the partner that broke the relationship. Now you've got to do more for that person to trust you. You have to come humble, willing to do more to build that trust. And you know, when it initially starts to get built, it's fragile. It's so easy to lose. And many people here have been in relationships where you're the person that broke the relationship for whatever reason, whether you cheated or whatever reason, and now it seems like you can't do enough to keep that relationship going. But if you value the relationship, and we do, we absolutely need the community to be able to be successful. There's not a strategy in policing today to be successful without the community. So we absolutely have to be that partner in the relationship between police and the community that does more to be able to build our trust. And here's what we're asking the community. Because you're safer when you trust us. When you trust us to give us information, you're safer when you trust us to tell us what's happening in the community, to tell us when it's happening in the community, who's starting the issues that lead to violence. So it's in your best interest to accept our efforts to build trust. So I know we broke that relationship. And some of you have personal experiences where the police did things to break that relationship. But we are committed to you taking us back.